As a young ignorant person who's had his fair share of trials and tribulations, I've always had this natural inclination towards fictional stories, even to the point where I developed a passion for creating them. The thought of creation, the mere idea of conveying a message, and imparting something I could be proud of to whomever or wherever it may end up, was both revelatory and invigorating. Like most others, such tales were nothing short of an escape, admittedly away from the confines of responsibility and reality itself. Naturally, when the time came to actually draft scripts, brainstorm ideas, then execute them, and ultimately test the limits of my creative imagination, I eventually fell under the weight of inaction and my own dissatisfaction, constantly frustrated by my sheer inability to articulate my scenarios in the manner and desired fashion I wanted to convey them in, even knowing beforehand of the numerous dangers and challenges in being a creative. Script after script, revision after revision, it became a cycle that repeated itself. Looking back on my life, I felt as if I lacked something important, something that would piece together the puzzle. Experimentalism, to its simplest definition, is a philosophical practice that involves running experiments with the primary goal of answering scientific questions and perhaps exploring the innermost depths of its looming complexities. Although, in more humanized terms, I view the concept as the process of constantly engaging in various experiences that simultaneously unlocks and actualizes possibilities, a genuine fondness for trying out new things, in spite of its uncertainties, and all of the reasons not to. What exactly does it mean to be experimental? Literature has perceived the term as the act of committing oneself to the exploration of unfamiliar concepts and worldly representations, traversing far beyond pre-existing literary convention. And despite me attempting to sound like I'm a pretentious smart aleck who knows what he's talking about, its mentioning of the term commitment struck a resonant chord within me. One's commitment to experimentalism is capable of being actualized in many remarkable fields, environments, and disciplines, be it in the form of art, music, science, literature, entertainment, education, and perhaps life itself. Artists and inventors commit themselves to their raw ability to innovate and exact their creative capabilities, just as much as athletes engage in real-time constant experimentation with certain plays that may either pay off or risk their chances of winning. People who skateboard constantly test out different tricks as a means of refining technique and discovering their style. Entertainers and creators engage in constant experimentation with imbuing life into certain projects, potentially as a means of figuring out what niche best suits their character and interests, simultaneously testing out various styles or formats. And in general, it may be considered that every human being has engaged in some manner of experimentation, be it with careers, jobs, philosophies, religions, and even relationships. Amid the process of undergoing such experiences, we obtain perspective, views that further our understanding of ourselves, our upbringings, our strengths or inadequacies, and ultimately, an elevated comprehension of the unknown. But what happens when experimentation grows to inevitably reach a point of stagnation? When we no longer harbor the will to try, to put ourselves out there, in the event things didn't exactly work the way we intended. When the routines, processes, and outcomes repeat themselves, the everyday becomes and feels mundane, and inaction slowly begins to characterize the current lifestyle, potentially retreating back into quick dopamine hits as a means of feeling whatever sliver of pleasure left the day may offer. It's a tiresome process that often feels cyclic. When passion changes to burnout, when optimism and hope transforms into prolonged exhaustion or hopelessness, it incentivizes the question of where, when, why, and how things started to turn south, and what exact answer is needed to solve the current dilemma. People often spend a lot of time and energy attempting to find a one-size-fits-all solution to such predicaments. But life isn't as simple as that. There isn't some life hack or one singular habit that will make things better or right again. Obvious as it may be, life will always be an endless cycle of constant learning, relearning, and unlearning, filled with trial and error. But more specifically, the lives we lead today are influenced and defined as an ever-growing collection of experiments, composed of continuous observation, evaluation, reflection, and accumulating data we obtain on the daily. Being experimental and living life experimentally will always be easier said than done. It requires acknowledging powerlessness and living with the inevitability of our shortcomings. But it is precisely because of our constant exposure to such shortcomings that we can explore the facets of our potential and where they may potentially lead. And yeah, they may result in failures, mistakes, and dead ends, where we might feel inclined to pivot and establish newfound perspectives. But what if one were to view their shortcomings as meaningful pieces of data that wield the capability to piece together the bigger picture? By viewing life as an experiment, I feel as if we obtain the courage and willingness to become more adaptable, to dive headfirst into unfamiliar environments that we wouldn't be willing to do otherwise. Failures wouldn't be viewed as failures, but as information. Opportunities that grant us the ability to transform our mistakes and imperfections into something beautiful and remarkable. Reminders bestowing insight, an invaluable stepping stone. You are the sum of your bookshelf, composed of various experiences and challenges, so continue to fill it with more stories to learn from and tell.